This reading is for Ally Carter. I want to know what you want me to know about Ally Carter. I'm seeing government here too. Don't be surprised if government is somehow involved with Ally Carter, where there could be some momentum around the government authority agency that she has accused of assisting in the trafficking. Don't be surprised if that happens. Because I'm getting that they knew. This is what's being negated from coming into litigation. But that's going to be exposed. So CPS, you might have a problem. That's all I'm saying. Let me tell y'all something. I warned y'all. I warned you, didn't I? I warned you. Now, let's get into it.
Recognize myself for an opening statement. Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Subcommittee on Border Security and Enforcement and the Subcommittee on Oversight, Investigations, and Accountability. This is a joint hearing on the trafficking, exploitation, and missing unaccompanied children of the southwest border. I think America, we should ask ourselves, why are so many children arriving at the border alone and afraid, sometimes in the hands of an unconfirmed relative with no apparent indications of family connection? These children show up with arbitrary phone numbers and addresses scribbled on their arms as if they're like packaging arriving at someone's warehouse or doorstep. Some children arrive at the border appear to be drugged, preventing law enforcement authorities from properly questioning them about those they're traveling with. This is outrageous, and it's an affront to the very core principles that form the morality of any decent nation. Certainly, Americans should not accept this moving forward. The purpose of this hearing is to put some hard facts on the table so that we can work together on both sides of the aisle and address actual solutions. The Biden-Harris administration has stated that they have the most humanitarian border policies in history, yet we witness these horrors that are happening, and there's nothing humanitarian about enabling criminal cartels to exploit, abuse, and profit from vulnerable children. Once the children enter the United States, Customs and Border Protection, the CBP, and Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, and Health and Human Services, HHS, are tasked with their well-being and safety. Initially, CBP works to process and screen those children once they're encountered at the border. Next, HHS works to identify and place them with a potential sponsor. Finally, ICE works to ensure they follow through with their immigration court proceedings. That's how it's supposed to work. However, those agencies do not have the capacity or resources to handle the sheer number of children who've crossed the border in the last 4 years. Compounding this crisis, the administration is not thoroughly vetting potential sponsors. This is a serious weak link in the chain. According to information leaked to the media, Health and Human Services reportedly lost contact with more than 85,000 unaccompanied children between 2021 and 2023. Now think about that. That's the size of major cities in America. In my district, that would be about the size of Lake Charles, Louisiana. 85,000 children that are stated and known to be lost. And this was a year and a half ago. We are appalled that our government has neglected its primary duty to protect the safety and well-being of those children placed in our care. It's entirely unacceptable that the current administration has allowed human traffickers to take advantage of this ongoing border crisis. We have a responsibility to our nation to fight against human trafficking horrors and to find and rescue the children that are currently missing. I'd like to express my gratitude to our witnesses for appearing before the committee today. With that, I yield the balance of my time, and I recognize my friend and colleague, Mr. Correa.
Good afternoon, and thank you to Chairman Higgins and Chairman Bishop for holding this most important hearing today on unaccompanied children. I want to thank our witnesses again for being here. Thank you for your time and interest. I'm going to listen to your testimony from you, the witnesses, very closely, not just as a ranking member of this committee, but as a father, as an individual that I think all of us in this country care about children. We want to find some good solutions to these challenges.
Let me just say this. Just because you're a father or a mother doesn't mean you care about your children. Everybody is not a mother. Everybody is not a fucking father, okay? Everybody is not. However, you can definitely be a donor or a surrogate. You definitely can be that. Just because you're a female and can give birth, it doesn't make you a mother. And I'm telling you, there are both parental figures out here that do not care about the children. They care about the benefit of the children. So if the benefit goes away, so do they. You absolutely have a lot of people like that. And unfortunately, you have a lot of people like that that have children or can get access to children.
And I hope that this hearing will also generate some good bipartisan, across the aisle solutions that all of us can work on moving forward. Let me be clear at the onset that it's everyone's responsibility to make sure all our children, as many children as we can put in safety, that we put them there. It means ensuring that these children that we're talking about today are protected at all stages of the immigration process. And that includes when they're encountered and held at the border, transferred to the Department of Health and Human Services, and sent to what we hope is a vetted sponsor. All of us want to stop human trafficking, child trafficking, and other horrible, unspeakable crimes against children. Human traffickers are not going to be waiting for us or our permission. They're going to keep doing what they do. But again, I'm interested in hearing solutions today from our witnesses, and also how you believe we can implement those solutions. All of us can give advice and counsel, but I want to hear, how do we implement them?
That means stop fucking talking. Stop talking. Stop fucking talking. Stop all this goddamn discussion and all this shit. We don't want no more damn policies. We don't want no more fucking, this is how we can't, no. Solution. We're tired of talking. That's all you've been doing. That's all you've been doing. Drawing up all these fucking policies and all this administration, and nobody's doing any action. Nobody. Everybody's passing the fucking blame. Oh, I can't talk about what this agency does. I can't talk about what this department does. I can't speak to what this person does or what this agency does or what. But y'all all work together, right? You're all working together, right? But you can't talk about or speak to what another agency that you're collaborating with can do or is doing. That makes you all talk. And we don't want no more talkers in government. We're done with that. All that goddamn discussion. All you do is talk. And meanwhile, years and years and years and years of children have been trafficked throughout the United States and abroad. It's fucking sad.
And the constraints that we have. And of course, Mr. Chairman, we all need to address the root causes of this problem of immigrants approaching the border. You know, earlier hearings, we discovered that 80% of the women, by the time they reach the southern border, are either raped or sexually abused. It's a long, expensive, and dangerous journey. So the question is, what would prompt people to undertake that journey? What would prompt parents to let their children go on this very dangerous journey? None of us want these children crossing our border or making this journey. Nobody in this committee wants to see that situation. So we have to ask ourselves, what is it that prompted these individuals to undertake this journey? A lot of young children I've spoken to in other countries have said, either I leave or I join a gang. One way or the other, I'm probably gonna die. Others come from families that have nothing to eat, essentially starvation. It's what prompted our ancestors to come to this country. Stay in Europe or starve. You got a choice. Also, we need to investigate those individuals that are making a lot of money from trafficking children, dropping kids over our wall, as well as those individuals in the United States that actually make a buck from looking the other way and hiring children to do adult work.
Exactly. Did you hear what he said? We need to speak to the traffickers, investigate them, and find out what they know, their connection. Then we need to investigate the people within the United States that have been getting their palms greased and greasing palms to look the other way. They've been looking the other way. They need to be investigated as well. Any crime against a child, you need to be accountable for it. You will be accountable for it. There is no more, oh, I knew what was fucking happening and I did nothing and a child was involved. All of you need to suffer. All of you. Everybody involved needs to suffer. If you knew this was happening and you did nothing, you're going to get what's coming to you as well. But he's right. They need to investigate the people directly involved, the people whose bank accounts are looking nice, the sponsors of these children, vetted through HHS, i.e. CPS, DSS. Because you got people who are working in the realm of these trafficking people. They are on board with it. They have been helping to hide the shit. Money talks. About to get y'all ass in some serious fucking trouble. For real.
And of course, we also need to make it easier for the victims that are trafficked to move forward, come forward, and to ask for help. I work closely with my Republican colleagues to counter a lot of human trafficking, child exploitation. And I've also spoken to special agents at Homeland Security investigations to hear about their investigations. What are they doing and what tools do they need to be more effective? And in this committee, I've spoken to many CBP officers about the ways they identify human trafficking situations. And I've also heard from the Department of Health and Human Services on their efforts to improve outreach to unaccompanied minors, expand access to post-release services, and improve the vetting process. And just last year, our Chairman Higgins and I introduced HR 4574, Cooperation on Combating Human Smuggling Trafficking Act. This bill would enhance Homeland Security's transnational criminal investigative units, which help stop trafficking in the home countries before these children undertake that long journey. I'm glad this bill has passed out of this committee and then is now scheduled to be marked up in the Senate, and hopefully we'll be able to get it to the president's desk for a signature. But so much more is left to be done, and that's where all of you come in. And finally, Mr. Carroll, I want to note that I saw your prepared remarks, and they don't conform to the rules of the committee. Here in Congress, we don't accuse sitting presidents, vice presidents, or members of Congress of treason, but you are invited by the chairman. And in this hearing, I'm going to respect that. I'm going to make sure we move ahead and hear your testimony, sir. We want to be productive here and move forward. And with that, I want to thank our witnesses for being here.
It's funny that he said we don't accuse a president of treason. Y'all might not. And I think that's a professional interest when you're in Congress. You have to be mindful of what you say, right? You have to be mindful of what you say about the president. Even if you knew he was contributing to a criminal enterprise, you had to be mindful of what you were saying about him, right? The president is a man. He's a person. And everybody that holds him in high regard got to remember that. There are others who don't hold him in high regard. You got to understand that there are people who don't hold him in high regard for their own reasons. But in a situation like this, where we're talking about hundreds of thousands of children that have gone missing and have never been accounted for, that were at some point passed through the hands of a government agency, there's a problem with that shit. Where everything is tracked, the government where everything is tracked has lost hundreds of thousands of children. They don't know where they are. How the fuck does that happen? You placed them. How do you not know where they are? Hell no. But yeah, so 2025 is not about to be a joke at all. So many people are out here trying to.
Ranking Member yields. I now recognize the chairman of the Subcommittee on Oversight, Investigations, and Accountability, the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Bishop, for his opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chairman Correa, both of you for your very kind words. For the most part, it is merely the seriousness of the problems that we confront and the deep disagreements about what leads to them that I think leads me to the things I'm going to say right now. When you say that we need more resources for rescuing children from these circumstances, when we say that we need more resources to crack down on employers who would employ vulnerable children in the country, when you say you need more resources to ferret out and child sex trafficking and the most horrendous sorts of victimization that you can imagine, sheer hell on earth.
Push back against the inevitable, okay? So many people are still out here trying to push back the inevitable. Get over it. We don't have time for this stupid shit. People are going back and forth about the fucking election, and that happened 3 weeks ago. They're still talking about it. They're still like, oh my gosh, he did not win. Something happened with them votes. You need to get off it. He won. Look at the map. The map is, the United States is red. Okay? It's red. Stop blaming all this bullshit. Oh, something happened with the polls. Oh my God, they have to do a recount. Why are we focusing on this? I want y'all to pay attention to what they're saying, because this is significant at this time right now. It's very significant, okay? Think about who has been in the news so much in the past 3 to 4 months. Who has been in the news? What have they been talking about? Who have they been saying is directly involved? Who has been putting out evidence back to back to back, okay? How many survivors have came out and told y'all this was happening? Pay attention. Please pay attention. This is so significant. And I'm telling you, so many people are about to be turned on their head. I've been telling y'all that for months now. So many people are about to be turned on their head. They are not ready for the shit that is about to be exposed. What you thought you knew? The American people voted for who they voted for. That is evident in the map. Regardless of the recounts and all this other bullshit you're still on. They won. The Americans voted. They used their minds and they voted. So you really don't have animosity towards the Republicans and Trump. You cannot believe how many Americans voted for red. And not all of them are Republicans. Get over it. We don't have time for that shit. We got more important shit to deal with. And this right here is just the start of shit to come out. I'm telling y'all, you better get off your fucking high horse. All these people that you had on the fucking pedestal are involved. And you still can't wrap your mind around it, so you keep negating it. You can do that all you want. And I hope that when the evidence comes out, you can handle it. That's what I'm gonna say. Because I know many of you will not be able to handle that shit. Many of you. You people who don't like to deal with the way things are in trouble. Going forward, you're in trouble. You're going to be in hell and purgatory in your life for real. Because you can't let go. You can't take reality for what it is. Be in the present now so we can fix shit. This is about these children and the trafficking of human beings for profit that has been happening on our soil, across our borders, along with other countries. They know about it. They're helping to facilitate it as well. You think the government's not involved? The only way they can get through the borders with human beings is if the borders are laxed. If they have contacts at the borders. How else are they getting in? You can't have that if your borders are secure. It'll be in less numbers. I guarantee you that. Okay? You're going to have to unknow. You're going to have to. I'm not going to say you have to unknow. I'm going to say that you're going to have to prepare yourself. For facing the reality of what you thought you knew. You're going to have to.
I don't know how you can talk about that need without reckoning with whether or not decisions that each of us made gave rise to the need that is articulated. Why did the people come? Because it was declared that the border was open. Let's face it, that's what was declared. That's why you saw a sudden, dramatic change. You saw a massive, complete 180-degree reversal of policy that had attenuated the flow most successfully in history. It was 100% reversed. And so we see the horrific circumstances that you now want to articulate more burdens on the American taxpayer to attempt to solve. You want to impose more burdens on the men and women of law enforcement who are already overburdened with the problems we have in society in the United States that will now be increasingly neglected because you have chosen to recreate in the United States to a substantial degree the horrific circumstances that are causing people to flee elsewhere. I too want to thank our witnesses for joining us today to examine this tragic crisis enabled by one of the major parties in politics in the American political system, and the Biden-Harris administration's gross mismanagement of caring for unaccompanied migrant children. And I think it also bears noting at the beginning, what we're examining here today are the unaccompanied children who went into the care of the Office of Refugee Resettlement and were supposedly cared for to the best of the capability of the overtaxed resources of the United States of America. And it overlooks every other migrant child who came in, many of them purportedly with family units to which they may not have been genuinely attached. And what has happened to them? We won't even see that in the numbers, upwards of 100,000 that we say have gone missing. We don't even know, those people aren't even represented in those stats. So under the Biden administration, over 526,000 unaccompanied alien children crossed the southwest border.
Did you hear that? Over 526,000 children unaccompanied. What?
Precedented number. Each year, from 2021 to 2023, CBP encountered over 130,000 unaccompanied children, more than twice the levels seen under the Obama and Trump administrations. While CBP is usually the first point of contact for unaccompanied children who cross the border, the Health and Human Services Department's Office of Refugee Resettlement is primarily responsible for the care and placement of these children. Much of this work is done in partnership with non-governmental organizations that provide shelter and services, usually under contract. Under the Biden-Harris administration, these NGOs received a windfall of taxpayer money through ORR, whose budget for its unaccompanied children program was $6.9 billion in fiscal year 2023. We throw these terms around, these numbers up here, like they don't matter. $6.9 billion, and my good friend and colleague in California is up here talking about we got to get a lot more. We need a lot more. Southwest Key Programs, the largest housing provider of unaccompanied children, one contractor, received more than $2.5 billion in taxpayer funding over the past 3 years.
I want you to understand what he's saying. He's talking about billions of dollars of taxpayers' money. That's us. In case you didn't know, that's us. Our money was used to pay these people who were facilitating this shit. And we don't know nothing about it. We know we have to pay taxes for this and that and that and that and that. Y'all don't know where that tax money you're paying is going. Well, this is one of the places it's going. Billions of dollars went to a contractor. Y'all, if y'all are not enraged by this, I don't know what the fuck is wrong with you. If y'all are not enraged by this, I don't know what to say. As taxpayers, you should know where your money is going. And that the integrity behind where that money is going is being solidified, validated by what we see and what we know. We didn't know anything about this shit. But these contractors have gotten billions of taxpayers' money. And they have been facilitating this trafficking for goodness knows how long. And the government knew. Because they paid the contractors.
The federal government sued Southwest Key, alleging that employees engaged in a pattern of sexual abuse and harassment against children in its shelters and failed to take sufficient action to protect the children in its care. Do you see how the dominoes fall? This is what happens when you begin with one ill-considered, ideologically bound decision that did not take account of the realities on the ground or the circumstances that would certainly ensue, and they have ensued. Another company, Deployed Resources, has had a contract for a migrant facility in Greensboro, North Carolina, my state, since May 2022. $39.5 million has already been spent, with another $64 million obligated. But incredibly, according to HHS, no children have been in care at the facility from the time it became operational in March until it went into standby in June.
What? Oh, so we paid for a facility so that they can take care of children, and no children have ever been at the facility? Where the fuck did the kids go? What did they do with them? This is millions of fucking dollars that came out of our pockets and went into contractors' pockets to help facilitate these children. telling me that no children were ever there? Where the hell did the kids go? The facility is a front. Where's the money going? Where's the money? Trace the money. Where is the money going? That's all you gotta do. Trace the money. Where's the money going? Who signed off on it? Who followed up on it? Who reported back on it? Y'all, I'm telling y'all, this is fucking crazy to me. Millions of fucking dollars of our money. We're paying this shit. This is why you should be outraged, because this is the money you're paying. They are supposed to be using it for the benefit of this country. But it's not for the benefit of the country. It's for the benefit of somebody, though. This is crazy.
You see how the consequences proliferate of unbelievably bad decision-making? What do we spend all that money on? The Biden-Harris administration placed political aims above the welfare of unaccompanied migrant children who crossed or were trafficked across the southern border, releasing UACs, I'm not going to use that term, releasing unaccompanied children with inadequate vetting and follow-up to avoid the bad optics of crowded facilities. The Office of Refugee Resettlement releases children to sponsors in the United States. Thorough vetting of these sponsors is absolutely critical and morally compelled if that's the path you're going to undertake to bring these children across.
Vetting a sponsor. Vetting, you know what vetting a sponsor means? Do you know what that means? That means that they're supposed to be going through checks, background checks, to make sure that they are suitable and able to care for these children. Because without that, you don't know who you're giving your child to, and apparently they haven't been real savvy on the accountability here. And all I can say is if you were doing your child with the utmost, if you were doing your job with the utmost integrity that you say you have in the government, nobody should have to say to you, maybe I should look after this child like they were my own. Oh, but that's right. There's a lot of people in the government that don't have children. No offense. So you wouldn't be able to relate. But you may have a pet. Nonetheless, what I am saying is the humanity in you should have spoken. Is this right that I should be giving this baby over to somebody that I have no clue if they have the capability to care for this baby or this child? I'm just gonna rush them out into somebody's house or in somebody's care that we don't know where the hell they came from, what kind of background they have, how they getting their money, how are they taking care of this child? Are you doing checks? You just giving them over. Now I want y'all to keep that in mind. Remember, Ally Carter said her foster mother, her foster parents were paid. They were paid by her pimp. They were paid by her pimp to not report her missing or not report anything about him and the trafficking at all. He paid them. She said $5 grand. He paid the family $5 grand and was able to take her. She said she was missing for over a year and they didn't even know where she was. They wasn't even looking for her. She said they removed her from the system. You know, the Amber Alert system, the missing children, missing person system, they removed her from it. Now, who the hell had the authority to do that? Who had the access to do that? It wasn't the damn public. It wasn't us. We're the ones paying the money for this shit to happen and don't know nothing about it. And that don't get you upset?
Unfortunately, the Biden-Harris administration's push to bring in migrants, to quickly release migrants, resulted in countless cases of migrant children being released to sponsors with major red flags, placing children at obvious risk of exploitation that has played out in exactly the exploitation that would have been anticipated. Far too often, children are released to sponsors who do not care about their welfare and intend to exploit the child through, at a minimum, child labor, and very often far more heinous forms of trafficking. Is it really in the interest of these children to rush to release them to individuals who are trying to sponsor multiple unrelated migrant children? This is a systemic failure that has put thousands of vulnerable children in risky situations here in the United States. This failure goes well beyond the vetting issues on the front end. As an Inspector General report earlier this year made clear, that the federal government cannot account for tens of thousands of children that HHS released to sponsors. 32,000 children didn't show up for their immigration court hearings. Those hearing dates are one of the only opportunities that ICE must engage with unaccompanied children and observe signs of trafficking or exploitation. What happened to those? What happened not just to 32,000, each one of them? What happened to that child? We do not know. They cannot be reached. This is just the tip of the iceberg. Over 290,000 have been released by HHS without a notice to appear for an immigration court date at all.
And why is that? Why is that? You just heard them go through how it's supposed to work. The people involved, ICE, HHS, CBP, all of these people are involved. All of these administrations are involved. All of these people have people who have been working in this trafficking ring. Y'all, I'm so angry because I'm very passionate about victims. Especially about child victims. If you don't know me by now on my channel, you should know that I do not play when it comes to victims, especially child victims. Because children are innocent. They are the most innocent. Adults are charged with their care. Period. We are responsible for them. And to allow them in here to so-called facilities that we're paying for and not following up or following through or vetting these people that they are being given to, how are we being responsible? So you want the kids to come into this country, you want us to facilitate the children, but you won't want no trace of how they're being facilitated, how they're being cared for. What? Why is that? So many children that we took upon ourselves to allow into this country to so-called help and facilitate, like I said. But we don't follow through. We don't keep track of who we're giving them to. We don't vet the people that we're placing them in the care of. Why are we not doing that? We're just going to give the children over to anybody. And these are people who work in the United States. These are United States citizens. A lot of them are United States citizens. Some of them are not. The children are just going willy-nilly. Nobody's keeping track. And they're saying it's because of resources. So why are we taking it on in the first place? That is my question. If you're going to blame it on resourcing, why are we taking them in the first place? And don't think that these are just illegal immigrants doing this shit. This is the United States citizens doing this shit as well. A lot of the sponsors are U.S. citizens doing this shit as well. And that includes the church.
So there will be no such opportunity to observe signs of trafficking or exploitation. There's no way for ICE to monitor their location, the status of these children, or verify their safety. We've asked and even subpoenaed HHS for information about the screening of potential sponsors and the children that they've lost contact with. In many cases, documented by investigative journalists with the New York Times, children released to sponsors who may not even be related to the child ended up working dangerous jobs to pay off debts or send money back home, often working night shifts or dropping out of school. Mr. Chairman, I request unanimous consent to enter into the record 3 articles. Alone and exploited migrant children work brutal jobs across the United States. That's February 28, 2023. Second one, as migrant children were put to work, U.S. ignored warnings, April 17, 2023, New York Times. And finally, U.S. failed to safeguard many migrant children, review find.
I want y'all to think about something. Remember, there was an article that came out about, I believe, a 15 or 16-year-old immigrant worker that they had working at a Chick-fil-A factory. Remember that? It was a minor working there that lost their life. They lost their life. It had something to do with they didn't work the equipment right, or they didn't turn it off, or some mess. They had a child working there. I'm gonna see if I can find it. But that happened. That was recent too. That didn't happen years. That happened maybe a year ago, maybe if less than that. So they absolutely have these children working, because that 16-year-old didn't speak English, but they had him working on one of those farms, on those factories.
Without objection.
2024. The federal government has precipitated and is facilitating this humanitarian catastrophe. The unaccompanied children are released from the HHS shelters right into the hands of these sponsors, despite multiple warnings from staffers within the agency that the vetting process was failing to protect children. The Biden administration was so focused on moving people through the system as fast as possible that they failed to ensure the safety of the children they were releasing. Many of these children already suffered at the hands of criminal cartels on that treacherous journey to the border, only to find themselves exploited again after leaving government custody. The human cost of this impossible to understand bad judgment is simply heartbreaking and tragic. I look forward to the testimony of our witnesses as we shine a light on this monumental failure. Mr. Chairman, thank you. I yield back.
The gentleman yields. Thank you, Chairman Bishop. I now recognize the ranking member of the Subcommittee on Oversight, Investigations, and Accountability, the gentleman from Maryland, Mr. Ivey, for his opening statement.
Before we get into this, I just want to tell y'all right now, I don't care for this man. This Mr. Ivey person from Maryland, I don't give a. Let me tell you something. This man can never approach me. He can never approach me. There is nothing humane going on in his fucking body, and that's what I think. This is my opinion. I don't care for him, and I feel like he was one of the people that spoke during this hearing that should have kept their fucking mouth closed, because this is about the children. It's about the children. It's only about the money when it comes to assessing exactly who and how and why. So I don't want to hear shit about the money. I don't want to hear that. I want to hear how we're going to take care of these children. But I don't care for this Mr. Ivey person at all.
The immediate challenge that this hearing, I hope, will focus at least in part on, because as has been stated, there's at least, I think 320,000 is the number that I've heard here in the United States, many of whom have not been located, many of whom we don't know what they're doing or how they're doing. And I do want to make sure we figure out how to touch base with them and help get them on the right track. Many of them are due for court proceedings. I don't know that those are on track. Apparently they are not. And I think we need to address that too. I know my colleagues have made some comments about money. But I unfortunately, I think money is going to be relevant to trying to address these problems. It's going to be expensive to locate these kids. It's going to be expensive to try and put them back in connection with their parents to the extent.
Let me tell you something. If you really care about finding these children, it's not going to take that much. It's not going to take all this money. We have to first look at why it's taking so much money to do what you're supposed to do. You are accountable for these children. You allowed them in this country. You brought them in here. And now they're scattered. And because you didn't keep track, now you want us to pay more money for them not doing what they were supposed to do in the first fucking place. You don't need a whole bunch. You got a lot of people out here who are willing to find these kids on their own. without your fucking money. There's nothing stopping people from doing that. Nothing. They can find them kids on their own. These agencies can track these children on their own, but they want you to pay them to do it. Wow. I don't even believe this shit. I just don't believe this shit.
They are here. To the extent there's a decision about sending them back to a different country, that's going to be expensive. To the extent there's a decision made about keeping them here, that's going to be expensive too.
This lends to the moral reasoning of a person, in my opinion. If you are morally justified in your actions, money's not going to prevent you from doing what you need to do. And you shouldn't always have to be paid for you to do something that you care about. If you care about the U.S., if you care about the reputation of the U.S., why is it that money always has to be involved for you to do the right thing? Fuck out of here.
I do want to note that the FY 2024 congressionally enacted budget for this particular issue, unaccompanied children program, is $100 million less than the prior year and the president's request. And then for the FY 2025 budget approved by the House Committee on Appropriations, more than $3 billion less than the prior year and what the president requested. Now, money doesn't fix everything. I'm, of the mindset that money can play a role, but there's got to be other types of impact that can make a difference on these sorts of things. But I really do think money's going to have an impact here. And Mr. Correa referenced a moment ago the issue about unrepresented minors.
From what I'm understanding from this person, he's trying to say that money is going to be an issue here when it comes to finding and tracking these kids that the United States allowed over here. And I'm going to say that because they allowed the borders to be like they are. They allow immigrants to come into this country. They invite them over. Specifically, this administration that's in now. Invite them over. Hurry up, come over here. Remember, you leave the borders open. They come over here and they're coming over without their parents. You're separating them from their parents. The children are alone. And then you scatter them throughout the United States. And they're forced into labor by their sponsors. We did this. And when I say we, I mean the government. We did this shit. And money shouldn't be an issue for why we can't stop it. Why is it that everything you do, it has to be about money? Money has to be involved. Money moves y'all, and that's the only thing that moves y'all? What if these were your children? What if these were your pets for the people who don't have children? What if these were your pets? Well, you thought they were going to have a start. They were going to have a way. They were going to have support. Only to find out that when they got over here, nobody cared. They put them with whoever. And nobody tracked them. Nobody followed up with them. Nobody went to visit them. And years and years and years go by and you don't ever see them again. Ever. You never hear anything, nothing.
Not getting any legal representation to the extent they're coming through court. Some of them might not speak English. Some of them might be too young to understand what's going on. Some of them might be old enough to understand what's going on. But I can tell you, the immigration process is a complicated legal system. Now I remember.
Shut up! What's so hard to understand about that shit? I heard a quote by someone that said, say it, forget it, write it, regret it, or some shit like that. Basically, that means no track record. That's what that means. No track record.
Remember in this committee, when we were voting on, I think it was HR 2, if I recall correctly, Mr. Magaziner offered an amendment to that bill that would have provided funding for legal representation for kids in these circumstances, and that was voted down and it has not been included. So I hope that's one of those things that we can revisit as we move forward with this. And I'll say this as well. I think that one of the things that we really need to do is make sure that well, I'll say it this way. I read in the testimony, two statements, well, multiple statements actually, about the harvesting of organs from children. And that was news to me. When I looked for footnotes and references and citations to support those claims, I didn't see them.
Bitch, what the fuck do you need? What kind of records do you need? What the fuck do you need to see an image of a fucking child losing their damn heart, losing their fucking lung, losing their fucking eye, losing their fucking limb? Are you serious? You need to see that to believe that that shit is happening. Are you upset because you couldn't see that? It sounds to me like this man from Maryland is lacking somewhere in his support system. He's lacking. That's what I feel. He's lacking. There's no way a survivor would tell me that and I not be in the moment with what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing from this person. I can't with this stupid shit. You're mad. You were looking for footnotes and documents of the. I can't with this man.
So I'll say you'll have a chance to testify about those when your time comes, but those are very serious allegations. And to the extent that that's actually taking place, I would strongly support the effort to energize the Department of Justice, the FBI, to the extent I know I've got some colleagues that want to defund them, but I don't think they're going anywhere, at least I hope not. And I hope that we can try and address whatever these types of issues may be. Certainly the sexual assault, certainly the trafficking, certainly the international cartel activity. I know the Department of Justice has had some success there, especially with the Sinaloa cartel, but we got a long ways to go to actually make a dent on that activity. And then Mr. Carroll, I guess, I just got to mention this before you have a chance to testify and you can address it. But staff found a couple of quotes from you about punching, I guess it was the speaker, square in the head.
So this is what I'm talking about with this man. We're getting off track here. We're starting to talk about the witnesses who are bringing forth the information that they have direct information and experience and knowledge on about the child trafficking. And instead, he's choosing to talk about something that one of the witnesses said. Out of his passion and regard for the situation. So he's attempting to sidetrack the focus of this conversation. He's about to do that now. What he's talking about don't have nothing to do with the kids.
And the mass deportations will be swift, but they will be deadly. And I'm concerned about those kinds of comments. Now,
why the fuck? Oh, so you concerned about that? I'd rather you be concerned about the trafficking by these illegal immigrants. he's choosing to talk about the mass deportation of the illegal immigrants. That is not the focus of this conversation, even though, as it pertains to the illegal immigrants, they are directly involved in the trafficking that is being facilitated by the government. We shouldn't be talking about the mass deportation. We're supposed to be, in this meeting, we're supposed to be talking about how the illegal immigrants are helping to traffic these children. So he's attempting to throw adversity into this hearing. That's exactly what he's doing when he's asking this question about a comment that was made about the deportation of these illegal immigrants. I hate when this happens. This is another reason why, or this is another way I can tell I'm dealing with a lefty.
Your service.
Are you a brown noser?
Michael Jordan.
Because I feel like you are.
I guess he's kind of a goat out of North Carolina. Maybe you can be the Republican goat for Congress out of North Carolina as well. And with that, I yield back.
Thank you, Ranking Member Ivy. Other members of the committee are reminded that opening statements may be submitted for the record. I'm pleased to welcome our panel of witnesses. I ask that our witnesses please rise and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give before the Committee on Homeland Security of the United States House of Representatives will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Let the record reflect that the witnesses have answered in the affirmative. Thank you, and please be seated. I'd like to now formally introduce our witnesses. Mr. J.J. Carroll is a retired U.S. Border Patrol agent with a distinguished 24-year career, most recently serving as Deputy Patrol Agent in charge of the San Diego sector. Ms. Ally Hopper is a nationally recognized counter-trafficking expert and policy advocate dedicated to combating human trafficking and exploitation. Ms. Kathy Laren serves as director in the Government Accountability Office's Education, Workforce, and Income Security team. Her portfolio covers a broad range of issues, including child welfare and refugee resettlement. Ms. Tara Rodas, how do you say last name, ma'am? Rodas. Ms. Tara Rodas is testifying in her personal capacity as an anti-human trafficking advocate, but professionally, Ms. Tara is an 18-year veteran of the Federal Inspector General community. In 2021, Ms. Rodas was detailed to the United States Department of Health and Human Services Office of Rep. She blew the whistle on the failures of the Unaccompanied Children program and was threatened with retaliation and investigation. I thank the witnesses for being here today. The witnesses' full statements will appear in the record. And I now recognize Mr. Carroll for 5 minutes to summarize his opening statement.